Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to our Week 12 fantasy segment. I'm your host, Jim Sella. I am in studio, as usual, with Jay Dash and two special guest hosts. We are blowing up at the Spread Studios today. Big Easy and Johnny Parlay, loving the fantasy with us. How you doing, Parlay?
It's packed in here.
I'm telling you.
More like the cram.
The cramp.
No, it's getting down to it in the fantasy weeks, though. It's crunch time.
This is crunch time, and if you need any, fantasy points to squeak into the playoffs, this is the show to be listening to.
That's why we're rolling four deep.
Four deep. Jay Dash, he does countless hours. Matthew Berry, you got nothing on Jay Dash. I'm not trying to hate on you, but he puts in more time at this than I do in my job and the spread combined. So you need some running backs. You better stay tuned in.
T1.
Arian Foster, Matt Forte, DeMarco Murray, LaShawn McCoy, Marshawn Lynch, Eddie Lacy, and then Le'Veon Bell's on a bye, and Jamal Charles already played yesterday.
McCoy started off having a huge season. I don't know. He's kind of not trailed off, but he hasn't done what everybody thought he was going to do. He's going up against Tennessee, who gives up the 11th most points to fantasy running backs. I look for him to have a big end of the season with Mark Sanchez, Mr. Butt Fumble, in at quarterback.
BF.
Okay, Tier 2.
Must starts right now.
Giovanni Bernard, Andre Ellington, Rashad Jennings, and Fred Jackson, who is expected to be back this week.
Is Bernard going to keep losing carries to Jeremy Hill?
That's actually why I dropped him down from Tier 1 to Tier 2 this week, because I'm not quite sure, because Jeremy Hill has been killing it, but I still expect Giovanni Bernard to be the number one back.
And he's healthy.
Parlay, who's your running
He's
backs?
healthy.
All right.
I got D. Murray.
Elite.
Well,
He's a number one, baby.
All right, who else you got?
As far as Tier 2, I don't got any of them guys. I also got Joik Bell, who might not even play this week. I'm sort of thin at the running back position, I must say.
All right, well, we got Tier 3. Justin Forsett, Mark Ingram, and C.J. Anderson.
I tried to pick up CJ, but someone snaked him from me.
I was going to say, C.J. Anderson's still there. He has a decent matchup this week going against Miami, who lets up the 17th most to fantasy running backs.
You don't like him Tier 2, Dash? You think he's a 3 this week?
Yeah, Tier 2, I say for the guys who have been killing it and you got to start him every week. He's more of a situational guy right now. Yes, Hillman and Ball's out, so he's a good play, but I'm not quite ready to put him in Tier 2.
Not feeling him. All right,
So like
cool.
an RB2 or maybe a flex guy if you need him.
Now I'm glad
he's definitely an RB2 for sure.
Now I'm glad I didn't pick him up.
Tier 4, Denard Robinson, Trent Richardson, and Lamar Miller.
Ooh, is Trent Richardson moved up on your list?
Trent Richardson moved way up on my list because, first of all, he has a great matchup this week going against Jacksonville. They led up the third most of fantasy running backs. But Ahmad Bradshaw's done for the season.
Oh, I did not know that. See, Dash, you know everything about fantasy.
Oh, it's not that hard to figure out if a dude's done for the season. But yeah, he did.
Sorry, man. Jeez.
he didn't have a good week
Feeling
last
the love
week.
at the Spread Studio.
He had no yards on 7 carries, so he didn't look good. But he has been getting it done earlier this year. He always was the feature running back for some odd reason in the Colts offense, and now he's going to be the every down back.
Well, I like the guy going against Denard Robinson. He's going up against Indy's defense, who gives up the 7th most points to fantasy running backs. Robinson's been a surprise since Gerhardt's been a washout. He has 15-plus fantasy points in each of the last 4 games with 4 touchdowns in that span.
Yeah, he's been killing it, and he has a very good matchup this week. And he's used in the passing game a good bit, too. So I expect a very good game out of him.
Well, now we got Tier 5. Shane Vereen, Frank Gore, Joik Bell, Trey Mason, and Ryan Matthews.
Oh, my goodness. I found all my running backs. You can take them off the milk cartons. They're in Tier 5. I got Frank Gore and Joik Bell. They're both Tier 5ers, you think they're, J-Dash?
Well,
You should have been
Ryan Matthews is a Tier 5 in my opinion. I mean, he's just coming back off that injury. He had 70 yards last week, and he's taking his roll back, but I don't know. It's a tough
St.
matchup.
Louis is a good defense.
That's a tough matchup against St. Louis. I think a Tier 5 Ryan Matt RMT5. I'm down with it.
Spot on.
Well, he's got the same initials as the Big Easy, and
Yeah.
he's
That's
still not
why.
feeling him. J-Dash, I got Bell and Gore, and I need to play one of them.
I would actually play Gore. I know he has the tougher matchup going up against Washington. They're very good against fantasy running backs, and he's been up and down all season. But if you notice, the only way San Francisco wins is when they give the ball to Frank Gore. And I think they're finally realizing that they are 6-0 when he has 16 or more carries. And he averages 13.5 points in those 6 games. So I think they are going to keep feeding him the ball, and he's going to be better towards the end of the season here.
Nice. Feed Gore. I got him. Feed him. Give him at least 16. So tier 6, you got Jeremy Hill, Jerick McKinnon, you got Alfred Morris, and you got Isaiah Crowell.
Isaiah Crowell.
Crowell.
Get
like
him.
Crawdad.
Get him.
New Orleans style. Crowell. Crawdad.
He's going against Atlanta, and they give up the most points to fantasy running backs. He led the team with 14 carries and 61 yards last week and had 10 fantasy points in each of his last 2 games.
Feed him.
Let's not forget Ben Tate's gone too.
Right.
He's gone. He's with the Minnesota Vikings now. So it looks like Crowell is going to be the number 1 back in Cleveland, although they also have Terrence West, who sometimes looks like the better running back. It's hard to tell who they're going to feature each week. They usually go with the hot hand, but I expect Crowell to be that guy most weeks, and this is a great matchup for him.
Even though he's in 6, you got to do well with Crowell.
Tier 7, you got Steven Jackson, Reggie Bush,
Hey, I got him.
Chris Ivory, Terrence West, and Bishop Cup-O-Sankey.
Let's not forget about Charles Sims. I actually like this guy. He's at the
Well,
bottom of the list there.
Yeah, I kind of seen him there, but I just didn't feel like he was tier 7 material, so I was just going to leave him out.
You're just going to move him to tier 8 on your
Yeah,
own.
see, I was going to adjust on the fly.
What about Chris Ivory this week?
You like him easy.
I'm not going to. No. I don't like
You don't
him.
like him?
He has a very tough matchup. He goes in, well, I guess the game isn't in Buffalo
No,
anymore.
it's in Detroit now.
It's in Detroit now, but Buffalo lets up the
Turf.
3rd fewest to fantasy running backs, and he only has 73 yards over his past 2 games. He has more than 44 yards once in the past 4 games, so he's not getting it done. He has 5 fantasy points or less in 4 of his last 6 games. He's fallen off. It's mostly because the Jets are a terrible team.
Well, what about Reggie Bush up against New England? They give up the 9th most points to fantasy running backs. He didn't play last week for, the 3rd time in 5 games, I think?
Yeah.
And he hasn't done a lot for fantasy owners, if anything. Can he have a big game? Can he be the deciding factor? They haven't had their whole offense together pretty much all year long. Is this the game with him back, with Megatron back? Is Stafford going to blow up? Is Bush going to blow up? Can he have a huge game and win somebody that important late season victory?
I wouldn't touch Reggie Bush. I would treat him like garbanzo beans this week. Get him out of my sight. Don't put him in the lineup, please, unless J-Dash suggests it.
Yeah, you don't want him in the lineup. He's just not getting it done all season. He's pretty much the Michael Crabtree of running backs.
That's brutal there.
Yeah, you just don't want to play him. He's not the same running back
You
he
wanna
used to
catch
be.
the
Plus,
crabs.
they have Theo Riddick, who they also like, that does pretty much the same thing he does. Joyke Bell's the main running back, and then they use Bush and Theo Riddick in the passing game, and Theo Riddick could outplay him.
Hit it, Reggie. Hit the bricks, even though your ex had that nice magazine cover last week. It's time for you to just cool it down. Hit the showers.
Later.
Tier 8. Jonas Gray, Darren Sproles, Roy Haley Jr., and Brandon Oliver.
I'm surprised you got Gray above LeGarrette Blount. Everything that I hear, Blount's going to be getting the main carries over Gray.
Yeah, I don't believe it yet. Did you see what Jonas Gray did last week?
No, I wasn't watching.
My God.
Football or just...
Did he save somebody from a fire?
No, he did not do anything heroic.
Oh.
Although he did score 4 touchdowns and
That's
rush
a
for
hero.
200.
So he's like Al
yards.
Bundy then. Al Bundy was heroic. He's my childhood hero.
No, he just picked up 2 hundo and 4 touches.
So, yeah, in the long run, I actually do think LeGarrette Blount is the better running back in New England. But for this week, I think they're going to let Jonas Gray at least have the first chance at majority of carries and see how it plays out. You never know what New England's really going to do.
Right. Well, hey, man, if you say Jonas Gray over Blount, I'm going Gray over Blount because I pretty much don't know anything about fantasy.
I really wouldn't play either one, to tell you the truth.
Well, I imagine Jonas Gray's ownership percentage went from about 6% to 98
Yeah.
overnight.
And I don't expect him to be doing this every week. He might end the season with 5 or 6 touchdowns. You don't know.
You got to stay away from those scavenger fluke players. There's a lot of people who scoop them up as soon as they have a big game, and then they're just sorry.
And if you're feeling it and you need a win and you want to gamble, Darren Sproles all day. He'll get it done for you again this week.
D. Sproles.
Right before we came into the studio, I seen on TV they were trying to say Darren Sproles deserves more carries and should be taking some of the carries away from LaShawn McCoy. That'd be nice for Darren Sproles owners, but I don't believe it. LaShawn McCoy's a beast running back. Yeah, he hasn't been a beast all season, but Darren Sproles is not a feature running back, if that's what they're trying to say. He just doesn't get enough touches. He has like 2 to 4 touches a game. Yeah, he is a kick returner, so if you take a chance on him like you did a couple weeks ago, Easy, he can come up with 15 points, but don't expect it.
Yeah, if you don't get return yardage points, or he's not going to get you yardage. He might get you a touch and some receptions. So it all depends. If you're hurting and you need some points,
But
I'm
you're
all
right.
about D Sproles.
Look at who he plays. He goes up against Tennessee, and you know what Le'Veon Bell did to Tennessee last week.
Yeah, it's all about the touches when it comes to fantasy, and you need to have Jerry Sandusky numbers as far as touches if you got a fantasy player.
Tier 9, Bryce Brown, Benny Cunningham, and Travaris Cadet.
Is there really anything to say about these guys down here at Tier 9? Who do you think's the best stash? That's who I want to go with.
Well, I have Bryce Brown as the top guy.
That's it.
The reason I like him is because, yes, Fred Jackson is coming back, but I think that hurts Booby Dixon more than it hurts Bryce Brown. Brown had 7 receptions for 57 yards last week on 10 targets. So he was being used heavily in the passing game, and those are the type of running backs I like.
When you get down to players named Booby, you know we're getting deep in the tiers.
Believe it. And
So if you got these guys, you're probably not even contention.
But, I think that Buffalo's going to kind of get it together this week. They're going to band together with this, not tragedy, but, craziness in Buffalo. And I think they have a big week, and they really blow out the Jets. So Brown could have a huge game.
Tier 10, Chris Johnson, Bobby Rainey, Juwan Thompson, Daniel Herron, LeGarrette Blount, and Ben Tate.
There's our boy, Mr. I like to walk off the field early, LeGarrette Blount. I kind of liked you before you did that, Blount. You did offer an apology on Twitter. I don't know how, not appropriate, but how
Genuine.
Yeah, thanks, Easy. I don't know.
Yeah, there's only one.
I'm not feeling it.
There's only one
Bleep
Steeler.
you, Blunt.
There's only one Steeler that is worthy of that last name. It ain't you, LeGarrette.
Like we were saying, you were actually saying that Blount may get the majority of the carries this week. I'm not believing it, and plus he has a very tough matchup, just like Jonas Gray, going up against Detroit. And I'm not ready to put him any higher right now, but I think he can go up on this list towards the end of the season. He might help you out in the playoffs. If you have room, maybe stash Blount on your bench and see what happens.
Well, Easy, who would you rather have, Juwan Man Thompson or Daniel I'm high on Herron?
Herron.
Herron?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a good matchup this week. Like we said, Amal Bradshaw's out, so this is their number 2 back. Maybe he takes a little bit of what Amal Bradshaw did.
Tier 11, Lorenzo Taliaferro, Alfred Blue, Theo Riddick, and Carlos Hyde.
So what about your boy Carlos Hyde here? You ready to admit he stinks?
I don't know. I still think that Hyde's going to keep taking more carries away from Frank Gore.
How dare you?
Hey, I don't want it to happen for your sake, Mr. Parlay, but that's just what I keep hearing.
Give Gore more. Feed him 16 plus.
Feed him.
You must be watching ESPN too much. Don't listen to them. Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, listen to a real analysis. Bet_the spread.
Believe it.
Please believe it.
Alfred Blue, did you see what he did last week? 36 carries. That was a franchise record. He had 156 yards, but Arian Foster's back, so the chances of him giving you much this week are slim to none.
Well, what about Tier 12?
Tier 12, the final tier. These guys suck. Doug Martin, Matt Asiata, Toby Gerhart, and Booby Dixon. There he is.
Mr. Booby. I was high on Booby at the beginning of the year, but he's pretty much washed out, and he's a boob.
Please believe. And Toby Gerhart, there's your man, Easy.
Yeah, I'm glad I drafted him. I went all white with my fantasy team this year, and it hasn't worked out quite yet.
That was a solid informational pick by me, Easy. Sorry about that one. That's why I don't run the fantasy segment.
You live and learn.
I'm the second or third host of this. Well, thanks, fans, for tuning in for our Week 12 running back segment. You can follow us on Twitter at bet_the spread. Check us out on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you, Dash, Easy, Parlay. You guys are great. Love doing this with you.
PPP.
# PPR.
Peep it.